the beginning of that proposal is, we hate you guys. We think you're stupid. We think you love criminals.
They hate us. You think they don't hate us?
No, they do hate us. They do hate us.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is it's okay. Hate us, we hate you, but let's work together so we don't get robbed. The guys want issues. Don't you want higher wages and healthcare? And I know some of you say, no, not if it means working with a lib. And by the way, some of us say not if it means working with a bigot, a racist, a homophobe, et cetera, et cetera.
At roughly 1802 in the video, I want you guys to pay very, very close attention to this actual exchange. Now, in yesterday's video, when I discussed this, what I was talking about was the fact that Ana is obviously reaching her breaking point. Now, I personally believe this is the case because I've personally seen this out of a lot of people who then turn more moderate and then eventually to conservative. But then again, at the same time, this is Ana Kasparian. I'm not supporting her. I'm just simply saying that I've seen this behavior before. Now, I'm not saying that she's turning to the right. I'm not saying that at all. However, when the YouTuber Spoon made fun of her in a little montage and we had that nice little PragerU emblem saying why I left the left, it is kind of ironic. And while I don't think it will happen anytime soon, it is definitely something that would not surprise me at this point.
Decades. No, but they have a false middle. Their middle is, bipartisan compromise that we should give billions more to corporations, and that's the middle of the country. That ain't the middle of the country. The middle of the country is an average guy, an average woman working their ass off, barely making it, et cetera, right? So I address the actual middle as opposed to the Democratic Party. Look, here's my solution, and this is what I've been doing to the best of my...
Look, let me say this really quick, and yes, there's going to be a lot of interruption because I got to cut Cenk off a lot. Cenk Younger considers Jimmy Dore to be right-wing. Jimmy Dore is further to the left than Cenk is. All right? Jimmy Dore considers Glenn Greenwald right-wing. And Glenn Greenwald is further to the left than Cenk Younger. Cenk Younger claims to have been a registered Republican at one point in time, but in reality, when you look at his actual statements, his records, he's probably more of a good old-fashioned business Republican that still voted Democrat on the local level. So don't even give me that. Also, something else too, while we're on the topic of the middle, there are several instances where the middle has been met not to completely screw the American people. Let me give you some examples. John F. Kennedy, Democrat president, had to work with Republicans to get tax cuts done. Dwight Eisenhower had to work with Democrats to get the interstate system done and tax cuts as well. Now, granted, we're going back in history. Richard Nixon, one of the more maligned presidents in American history. He is the reason why the EPA even exists. Democrats were in charge of the Senate, and they were also in charge of the legislation at the time when he was in office. Clean Air Act, Title IX, that's Richard Nixon. I'll leave links in the description box. But he had to work with Democrats to get that stuff done, and while we may not agree with those policies today, he definitely had to work with the other side. Oh, wait, that's right. Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson had to work with Republicans to get the Great Society and Civil Rights Act done. I'll leave a link to that as well. If you don't believe me, you can go read it. Good old-fashioned Wikipedia. Oh, wait, let me see. There's some more. Oh, that's right. Reagan had to work with Democrats to get tax cuts done in the early 80s. George Herbert Walker Bush also had to work with Democrats. George W. Bush had to work with Democrats when it came to the bailout. Oh, wait, Donald Trump, that's right. He had to work with Democrats to get the First Step Act done. Democrats in Congress, they had to vote on it. So yes, Republicans and Democrats can meet in the middle. Oh, and that reminds me, that glorious time in the mid-1990s when Bill Clinton had to work with Newt Gingrich, Republican Congress and Republican Senate to do things like say, the tax cuts, like the capital gains tax cut. That's right, entitlement reform, border reform. Bill Clinton had to work with Republicans too. So yes, there is a middle where two parties can meet. Of course, this has been destroyed for the most part, in my opinion, because of people like Cenk. Most of the crap that he says is, let's just go ahead and say that they're very bad ideas. People are already turned off by him anyways. But we have to listen to this asshat completely run his mouth about the middle, where in reality, his middle is somewhere out in foul territory somewhere.
And often very wrongly, I'm sure, right? But I play both defense and offense. So if you're going to attack people, we're going to defend them.
Every night you play offense, not defense. Do I have to bring up the entire Kyle Rittenhouse ordeal? How many lies that were told then?
Okay. At the same time, and this is what none of the rest of the Democratic Party do. Bernie does it a little bit. Justice Democrats do it a tiny bit. But
Justice Democrats do nothing.
tiny.
No, Justice Democrats run their mouth constantly and create fake hoaxes like AOC, and now suddenly we're finding out that she's got a burner account, stuff like that. Bernie Sanders, cucked. He's been a lazy ass his entire life, a freeloader. I mean, dude even got kicked out of a communist commune in Vermont where he lives at. All right. Did you ever notice that Bernie Sanders used to go with the whole, and by the way, I've never been a progressive. I'm going to say it right now. I've never been a progressive, but I do have friends of mine who were progressive, and they've switched over to the right. And it's mostly through these people's actions is the reason why they do it. You don't practice what you preach. After a while, you get completely politically disengaged. You back off, and then you realize the entire ordeal is messed up, and then you just want some form of moderation, meaning you want things to be much, much more moderate. You don't want people going after your kids. You don't want people perverting the school system with drag shows. You don't want this. Then you finally see, once the issue hits you at home. Now, there is a dichotomy. There is a bit of a yin-yang effect here. Let me go ahead and explain that now. When I was in paralegal school, I found out very quickly that conservatives become liberals the minute they are put on trial. Because liberals are pretty good at gaining the system. They're pretty good at being attorneys. They're very good at being lawyers. It's part of the reason why I think Trump should have hired Alan Dershowitz for this entire ordeal. But then again, though, after seeing what happened yesterday, it doesn't look like it was necessary. Now, on the topic of conservatives becoming liberals in the courtroom, liberals typically tend to become conservatives at a much, much higher rate when an issue hits them at home. Not just the wallet, but actually hits them at home. But then again, though, we do have some parents carrying these kids to these woke indoctrination events. A lot of people leaving red areas, going to very, very liberal colleges, and you guys can see the ideology playing out. However, many people have left this form of thinking, this progressive thinking, because of people like Cenk, because people are now seeing the reality that everything he spews every night, all this aggressive stuff, is not in fact true. And don't worry, we'll get to the end with Ana one more time, like yesterday. So that way I can further clamp down the fact that she's fed up and she's frustrated and she's starting to see that their way is not working and it will not work.
Okay, what you have to do is play offense on economic issues.
Yes.
Do you want higher wages or do you want the Republican plan of lower wages? Do you want health care or don't you want health care?
Two very quick things. Number one, healthcare. Everybody would like their healthcare to be affordable. Everybody would like their healthcare to be free. However, let me go ahead and tell you right now, as a veteran, if you were to get free healthcare in this country, it would be equated to what the Veterans Administration is. Go talk to any veterans, ask them about the healthcare. Also, something else too, when Bernie Sanders was raising hell about free healthcare on the debate stage back in 2020, Michael Bennett said something extremely rational, something I've not heard from a Democrat from a very long time. And don't worry, we'll talk at the end of the video about the voter basis, briefly. Michael Bennett said that country to the north has only got about 30 million people. The United States has got over 330 million people. The United States right now has got to supply the world when it comes to foreign policy, security, stuff that we have to export. We're actually exporting oil around the world. We spend a lot of money, and we're not just paying for American citizens, we're paying for the entire world. Now, while I do have some neoconservatism in me that does believe that we do need to protect our borders overseas, I do think NATO needs to pay their fair share. It's one of the main reasons why I chose Donald Trump, all the other candidates, because he was the only one talking about it. Every other candidate, everybody else would have just done a continuation of the same. Now, what has that gotten us? It's gotten us massive inflation. It's gotten us extremely high gas prices, so free healthcare is already off the books. The vast majority of these people who talk about free healthcare talk about it from a place of privilege, mostly suburbanites, or those who may have, so we know we can adopt certain aspects of socialism. Well, anytime you do that, it leads to what the hell's going on in Venezuela. Don't worry, we'll do more videos on that in the future. About wages. Do you really think with the current level of inflation that higher wages would actually help? At the end of the day, everything's just going to go up in price anyway. So what the hell's the point in raising everything? Don't worry, we'll do another video on that at a later date. So let's go ahead and get back to this.
God's sake, this is the one thing Ana and I agree most on. Play offense on economic issues. And look, right wing, let me just say this. I don't mind if you hate me. I'm going to fight you and you're going to fight me, okay? On these culture war issues, it probably lasts the rest of our lifetime, okay? But can we just agree on things that are not culture war issues? Don't you want higher wages and health care? And I know some of you say, no, not if it means working with a lib. And by the way, some of us say, not if it means working with a bigot, a racist, a homophobe, et cetera, et cetera.
Really quick. Number one, Cenk, we don't hate you. Matter of fact, we actually find you hilarious. This is the same guy who named his show TYT, does not believe in the Armenian genocide, meanwhile having an Armenian woman working with him. This is also the same person who got mad about not being able to board a plane that had mechanical issues. This is also the same guy who thought it was okay to legalize bestiality, of which, by the way, has been legalized in the country of Spain. I'm showing you this now. Also, those facial expressions, which, by the way, I will be taking screenshots of and putting in my thumbnail, obviously, to get more views, because the impression rate obviously does garner you more views in YouTube. But that's the thing. If anything, Cenk, you make us absolutely laugh. However, where you get things wrong, and this is one of the reasons why I told you guys to go watch the Denver Politics video, the demonetized video that I showed earlier about Vosh being unironically evil. We, for the most part, don't care what you do behind closed doors as long as you are not doing it in front of our kids or doing it out in the open. It's one of the reasons why I brought that Cato Institute poll, because, quite frankly, we don't want to look at it. We have a right to not view it. That's one of the most American things you can ever have, is the right to say no. Are we against gay marriage? Well, for the most part, a lot of conservatives have kind of evolved on that. My personal feeling is that, yes, I'm against it. But I think it should be a states' rights issue. That's how it was originally supposed to be. You can disagree with me all you want to in the comment section. That's fine. But when you start out calling people homophobe, racist, bigoted, guess what? We're probably just going to smack you in the face and walk forward and walk away from you. Or we're probably just going to walk away from you. So, no, we don't want to work with you if you're going to be calling us these types of names and going out of your way to dehumanize us from the start. You can sit there and say, okay, well, forget the culture war issues for now. Let's work on the economy. Bro, American culture is being completely eroded because of morons like yourself. Now, me personally, I think Cenk borders more along the lines of a bad actor than he does an actual zealot. Because a lot of this is performative, and I think he even knows. I mean, dude, look at his freaking facial expression. I mean, don't this really just make you laugh?
So both sides fight the culture wars either now or later, but you have to fight together on economic issues where the people at the top, the donors, are crushing the living crap out of both of us. Let's stop the robbery first, and then we can go back to fighting.
How do you get people to work together when the beginning of that proposal is, we hate you guys, we think you're stupid, we think you love criminals?
They hate us. You think they don't hate us?
No, they do hate us. They do hate us.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, it's okay. Hate us. We hate you.
Cenk, you're our comedy. We don't hate our comedy. We think you guys are crazy, we think you're kooky, and we want to keep you more than one arm's distance away, but we don't hate you. Now, we do hate the bad actors, but we don't hate libs as a whole. We never have. We don't like what they're doing because we can separate the act from the person. Maybe if we get the person some help, that right there might be the case. But we don't hate you. We actually find you guys to be, for the most part, like I said, funny. We can't hate our comedy. It's just the way that it is. Now, you can say that that is dehumanizing, and guess what? You might be right to a certain degree. But you got to ask yourself a question. Who's the one who's forcibly dehumanizing the other? Well, I think the answer is pretty obvious, and I think that Ana is starting to wake up to see this. Not to mention the fact that Ana, of course, has been having conversations with people like, say, Ben Shapiro. She's been having conversations with Dennis Prager. She's been speaking to a lot more conservatives. This is a problem that we have right now. You see, the real divide in this country is not between the left and the right. It is actually between city, rural, small town, and suburban. It's actually divided in like one spot versus three, being city voters are divided against everybody else. That's really what this is. City voters who have gotten very smug. Cenk and Ana happen to be city voters.
Let's work together so we don't get robbed. The guy's walking away with the freaking money. Let's stop the robbery first. And
let me say this one more thing. I understand, I know I'm probably interrupting a little bit too much, but while he's talking about getting robbed, let me say this. The person who is screaming that is probably the person that I would least likely want to be around when I'm trying to get my money back, because the person who's screaming and hollering is automatically making the person who's in charge of the money, that they're being the rich man, because guess what? Poor people can't give poor people jobs. This is a very, very simple economic concept that a lot of libs and a lot of left-wingers don't seem to understand. Your job title, your job, is controlled by somebody who has more money than you. Your employer has to pay you. It's part of the reason why we argue for less taxes. So that way, you can have more money in your pocket. If you tax the little hell out of me, next thing you know, you're being laid off and you're giving government assistance. And you know what that does? That puts a heavier burden on the taxpayer, who then turns right back around and eventually loses his income or her income. All right? So when you're sitting here screaming, we're getting robbed, we want to distance ourselves from you because it's because of you that we're all going to end up in a much, much worse spot.
It's an honest way of dealing with it. Instead of saying like, oh my God, maybe you guys are right about X, Y, or Z.
No, I never said that, Cenk. I never want the straw man. Okay.
That is a straw man.
That is no, you love straw manning. You love it. I'm trying to be as fair as possible during this conversation. You're intentionally misrepresenting what I'm saying here. Obviously, I don't agree with the hateful rhetoric. I don't like any of it, okay? But it's really interesting to me that when you had a candidate like Obama who ran on hope and change, who ran on economic issues, all of these people who are now enamored with Donald Trump actually voted for Obama. Gee, I wonder why that is.
Roughly 9.5 million voters who voted for Barack Obama between 2008 and 2012, between both of his elections, did in fact vote for Donald Trump in 2016, and there were more in 2020. How the hell else do you expect a man to go from 62.9 million votes to 74.2? We have to remind people all the time that the election was decided by only roughly about 44,000 votes between 3 states. This is a problem between the blue state and the red state, but mostly between the blue area, meaning the city, and the red area. People have had enough of this, and I think that Ana is starting to see this. And like I said before, I do not believe she will change. She is obviously beginning a process of walking away from this rhetoric, and she sees it through Cenk. Now, guys, really quick. In the previous video that I made about this, I brought up the video that I made about her coming out as a TERF. I brought up the fact that she had been, of course, I was picking on her about it, how it was she was changing her tune, especially when it came to crime and it came to wokeness. However, the thing that I forgot to mention was that Stitch and Adam originally reviewed this video as well. And I'll leave that video in the description box as well if I can actually put it in there. They claimed that they thought that Cenk knew he had screwed up when it came to her because he insulted her. I disagree with that 100%. I think Cenk realized not that he screwed up, but that Cenk realized, hey, look, I'm picking on her. I'm kind of bullying her here. This is exactly what I want because she's catching a lot of heat and I may lose her at some point in time. So the natural reaction is to try to get someone back in line. The problem is that Ana more than likely won't get back. This also tells me that Cenk has probably never been laid. I know that the ladies who watch this video are probably going to get upset when I say this, but let me say this to the dudes. Guys, if you tell a woman something, or if you pester or you badger a woman, guess what? She will stay further away from you. It's one of the reasons why we tell you when you get into a fight with the opposite sex, leave her the hell alone. Don't keep pushing her. Leave her alone. Let her walk away. Let her cool off. It's one of the reasons why we tell you that. The more you pick on, think about it this way here. Let's say you got a great big pile of crap right there in the middle of the floor, manure. Okay, if you leave it alone, it stinks a little bit. You walk away from, ooh, nasty. But if you start stirring it, it will stink a lot worse. When a woman is pissed off, regardless of the situation, leave her the hell alone. Walk away from her. Leave her alone. Let her cool off. When you badger and you pester, the only thing you're doing is causing more friction. And eventually, she's going to get pissed off and she's going to pop and she's going to walk away. That's how these relationships most of the time end due to a lack of communication, meaning that sometimes when you're communicating, it's best just to simply withdraw and let the other person walk away.
Be that in lieu of a candidate that actually represents their economic interests, they just go for the cult of personality who owns the libs. That is what happens. That is our political landscape right now. So we can continue attacking ordinary people that we disagree with. And to be sure, I do disagree with them. But we have to also, more importantly, if you ask me, focus on the systems that has created this mess in the first place. And sometimes I feel like the focus isn't where it needs to be. That's all I'm saying.
All right, super last thing on it. Look, Anna's, again, not wrong about the facts. So Obama, when he came into office, had around an 80% approval rating. So if the whole country was racist or all Republicans were racist, why was his approval rating that high? Why did he win a whole bunch of...
Now, this right here is where Cenk really looks like a complete total dumbass. You see, Cenk is saying something that I would say. Barack Obama got elected. He had a massive approval rating going in. Do you honestly think that 80% of the country is just black? No. Obviously, it's mostly white. People were willing to give him a chance. However, over time, when Obama was in office, what did he do? He played the race card constantly. Okay, he did it every chance he got to bring up race. Trayvon Martin, Jim Crow, this, that, and the other. He brought it up. After a while, people got tired of it. It's not because people are racist. It's because people are getting tired of being pestered with the same nonsense. Go back to what I was saying about Ana. Go back to what I was saying about the ladies. If you keep pestering them, they will eventually walk off. This is also the same case with conservative voters. If you keep pestering them and throwing crap at them, eventually they walk away. By the way, there's an old proverb out there that if you're ever in a mudslinging contest, after a while of throwing mud, The person who's throwing it, after a while, will eventually lose the ground they stand on. Liberals are losing the argument every day. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, they're still winning elections. All you got to do is look at 2022. Yeah, a lot of that's because a certain figure is not on the ballot yet. You're going to see a massive change come 2024, and it's mostly due to this crap here. Now, let me say this before we go any further. H.A. Goodman is a former Bernie bro. You may have heard of him. Official scribe of Bernie Sanders' most hardcore supporters back in 2016. He voted for Donald Trump in 2016 to stick it to the libs after what happened to the DNC in 2016. He has not left the conservative side since. Now, he doesn't. Now, he's about like me. He's not just going to vote for any Republican. But he basically said the exact same thing. And he also said something else, too, about the Democratic Party at large. You see, it's because of this nature, because of this very aggressive nature, the Democratic Party is going out of their way. And trust me, there are ways to see it, to remove these Democrats, to remove these progressives. They need progressives gone. As long as progressives like Cenk exist, their goal is also hindered. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Go back to the tax the rich situation with AOC. I made a video about that, and I think I was mostly correct. It did not happen that year, but the reason why they did that with her and propped her up was so that way she could tell progressive voters in her district, and by the way, she was protested. The reason why we're doing this is to show you that she's one of us now. She's no longer one of you. She's one of us. After a while, her support erodes, and then eventually she can be primaried out in her district by a much, much more moderate-sounding candidate. But just because they're running as moderates does not mean that they're moderates. Most of these moderate Democrats get in, and then they govern like damn near pseudo-fascists. Just figure I'd throw that out there.
Red states, right? So if you think the only answer is racism, bigotry, etc., you're wrong. The facts do not prove out your thesis. Okay, right. So
But you just called us racist, sexist, bigoted, and all that type of stuff there, and even said that you want to refer to us as this. Now, gang, this is where I'm going to close the video at. Basically, what has been going on here is that Ana Kasparian sees that Cenk, for the most part, is insane. He's full of shit. I put it this way here. One person's fully blown crazy, the other person's half crazy, yet half stupid. The exact same thing. They have the exact same problem with Jessica Burbank. She's also a loon, too. Don't be surprised if someday, like 3 or 4 years from now, if Anna is gone and she is replaced with Burbank. So I just figured I'd just go ahead and throw that out there. But let me go ahead and end the video on this note right here. The biggest problem that we have is that libs, for whatever reason, the city infected, those who live in the city, they automatically assume that good old-fashioned moderate and conservative rubes are just very bad people. And you wonder why this is the case. Of 5.37 million subscribers, I would argue, 5.37 million subscribers, let me get this correct, I would argue that most of them live in places like New York and LA and Chicago. The places that have become the most progressive. They've been listening to progressive content, progressive rhetoric, and they automatically have an extremely nasty view of the person who lives outside the city. As I've said before, the real divide here is between the city and the rural to small town areas in the country, not really between the left and the right. Because a lot of times people who are on the left can live in an area that's red and still get along with people. For example, me, I live in a blue area. And this blue area I live in is actually in a red state. But yet most of my neighbors who disagree, I'm pretty sure some of them are Democrats, we all get along very fine. Fact of the matter is that people like this who come from these very, very big progressive cities, they are the ones who are dividing people at large. They're the ones who are going out of their way to divide people. And I think a lot of people are starting to catch on to this. Ana Kasparian, in my opinion, I do not think will be leaving the left anytime soon. But it would not surprise me if she does not leave Cenk at some point in time. And if that right there is the case, it could be the start. Gang, I figured I wanted to make this follow-up video to the other video because I felt it was absolutely necessary. There will be another video coming out tomorrow about the Convention of States and impeachment and what Republicans need to do in 2024. Well, that wasn't actually originally in that video, but I figured I'd add it anyways towards the end. Make sure you guys stick around. If you guys can, make sure you guys hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you guys are new to the channel. If you like the content, please do so. Please check out all my original content. Please critique me in the comment section. At least critique the microphone, at least, because sometimes I wonder about it. Make sure you guys do that, and if possible, please share. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this video off now. Oh, and one last thing. To the social justice warriors out there, piss off.